We're inching closer and closer to 1,000 followers over on our Instagram page. We currently have 923, 77 away. So if you are on Instagram, go give us a follow at Cowboys Report IG. Inside the Star listed Jalen Tolbert as a potential surprise cut candidate for the Cowboys this season. So I wanted to discuss it because it would be a surprise to me. So we're putting it in the surprise cut candidate bucket that is applicable. I do think there is a hypothetical path in which Jalen Tolbert just ends up not making the Cowboys roster. It wouldn't be the first time a notable name ended up being the surprise candidate or surprise player who ended up getting cut. Here's how this happens, even though I don't think it is a likely outcome. Step number one is Jalen Tolbert does not win the number 3 wide receiver job. Somebody else ends up merging, whoever it ends up being. I do think if you got an honest answer from the Cowboys, hey, who would you like to win that job? I think it'd be pretty close to unanimous within the organization, Jalen Tolbert, because they invested more in him. He's played more in recent weeks or in recent years than some of the other guys on the roster. The level of investment does matter, and the Cowboys would like to get a return on said investment and at least have him be that number 3, reliable enough wide receiver, even if he doesn't end up becoming a superstar type of player. Now, how does he get cut? Step 2? Well, he doesn't help on special teams. And Tolbert was playing on special teams last year, and he wasn't very good at it. Remember that trick play, that fake punt that we all kind of saw coming? Yeah, Tolbert was just not a very good, not gunner, but the blocker on the defensive side that lined up against the gunner. He didn't help that much. And if you're not receiver 3 and you're not a special teams ace, that role becomes very limited in terms of how do you count on game day? And how do you help the team? Because you might not be one of the 48. If Turpin's going to make the roster, if let's say he's only receiver 5, well, then you're kind of using that other receiver spot, the 4th and 6th. Turpin's on returns. He's not going to be a gunner out there. You kind of need someone to be a gunner in that role. How does that shake out? The tie, especially with the new kick return rule, might end up going to special teams. And for Tolbert to miss out on a roster spot, multiple others must emerge. In fact, it would almost be more feasible if Turpin doesn't end up winning the receiver 3 spot. He's receiver 5. Let's say Jalen Brooks or Ryan Flournoy emerges. And I think Brooks can help you more on special teams. The Cowboys, historically speaking, do everything possible to put the rookies on the 53, even if that means they're not going to play in year 1, kind of like Tolbert himself did a couple of seasons ago from that angle. What if someone like Racey McMath is like, he's so good on special teams, we can't cut him? What if David Durden has a breakout year coming off the ACL tear? What if Jalen Cropper ends up emerging as a viable piece? You need multiple other guys to emerge because the tie would still go to Tolbert. Of course, none of it matters if step 1 doesn't happen. So will Jalen Tolbert win the wide receiver 3 job? Y for yes, N for no. It is today's pinned comment. So if that ad plays on YouTube, it's fine. Ignore it. Head down there and go vote. The Cowboys signed Kareem Hunt, our good frenemies over at Bleacher Report, saying Dallas is a top fit for the aging running back. As we've said before, and I get it, every running back is going to be linked to the Dallas Cowboys. There's such a glaring lack of high-end, obvious number 1 running back that they're all going to get mentioned. I think the issue this team tends to run into here is they don't need a running back. They've got a lot of running backs on the roster. This is the best RB 3 to 4 running back room in the NFL. They don't have a number 1. Maybe they have a good enough number 2. Is this version of Kareem Hunt an RB1 or 2? I'm not so sure. So first up, a question for you guys. Do the Cowboys need another running back? 1 for yes, they do. 0 for no, they do not. Go ahead and vote in the comment section of today's show. Look, I'm down to add help here. I think it does need to be more than just a guy help, a jag, if you will. And I don't think Hunt is the guy to offer anything in that area. The player we've seen down the last couple seasons, there's regression here, folks. Now, he had a lot of touchdowns. Never chased the dragon of touchdowns in real life and in fantasy football, too. But he went from a 4.9 yard per carry guy in a small sample size in 2021 to 3.8 to 3.0. That's not good. Like that's pretty bad efficiency for a running back. And I always believe, hey, look at what the other players on the roster did. Jerome Ford averaged a full yard per carry more. I don't think Jerome Ford's a superstar player necessarily. That meant Hunt didn't do that well. Now, to be fair, Hunt was often used in short yardage. So a great way to kind of compensate for short yardage, red zone work, etc., where your yards per carry upside is capped, is to look at success rate. Summer Sports had 72 qualifying running backs in the NFL. Hey, did you earn positive EPA per play? Which, a 1st and 10 run for 3 yards, not going to be a positive EPA play. You're behind the chains, so to speak. A 3rd and 1 conversion, which you got a yard and a half, hurts the average. Successful play, though. Kareem Hunt was 38 of 72 in the NFL last year. Better than Rico Dowdle. Better than Ezekiel Elliott. Not as good as Royce Freeman. Not as good as Tony Pollard, who, of course, is now gone. These are the 5 relevant backs who qualify. Deuce Vaughn, like he didn't have enough carries there. I think the hypothetical role in which you use Kareem Hunt is repetitive. You kind of signed Zeke to be that guy, right? That's going to be his job. And I think Royce Freeman actually maybe is a better player, as small of a weird sample size as he has. It just seems repetitive to add another, maybe he can be our vet RB2 guy. I don't need another one of those players. Now, speaking of Zeke, you can get the number 15 jersey he's wearing this year over at chatsports.com/Zeke15 jersey. Link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. That's chatsports.com/Zeke15 jersey. Also be a clickable link there on the bottom end of the screen. Let's talk trade rumors here. Fan-sided, they really want Skyy Moore in Dallas. And there was a point I was fully on board with them. I liked Skyy Moore quite a bit coming out of Western Michigan. The fan-sided trade idea is, hey, a future 7th-round pick, next year's 7th-round pick, because Fanside doesn't always get it right. The Cowboys have no 7th-round pick this upcoming season. They flipped it as part of the trade down and eventually taking Tyler Guyton deal. That's really nothing in terms of what you're giving up for a former 2nd-round pick. You're not moving anything of value whatsoever. That's going to be a late 7th-round pick, and all like that is going to be out to the top 200, might be in the 230s, whatever. It's very low value. The problem is, Skyy Moore has very low value right now. And my biggest issue is, hey, there's not a great sample size of receivers who put up bad production, who were early-ish round picks, that suddenly get better elsewhere. It's kind of like, remember how every team and every fan base uses the Peyton Manning rookie stats as evidence as to why the guy that was terrible in year 1 will actually be okay, and like it never pans out that way. It's the exception that proves the rule. That's Davante Adams. Adams had a slow start to his career and then figured it out. I'm not going to bank on that. And oh, by the way, if Skyy Moore couldn't work with Patrick Mahomes, do we think he's going to work anywhere else? That's not what I would consider a very good gamble. Now, we know it's a boring period here in the NFL calendar. Training camp's a month and a half away. We've still got things we're going to talk about. So if you want daily, at this point 2 times per day, Cowboys videos, hit that sub button, youtube.com/CowboysTV. We knew this. I knew this was eventually going to happen, but other outlets cooking up CeeDee Lamb trades. Frankly, I'm a little surprised it didn't happen previously. I have no expectations of a Lamb trade, but there were 4 packages from Bleacher Report, so let's run through them, then I'll give my thoughts on the overall topic, right? Trade idea number 1 was Jalen Polk, the second round pick out of Washington, and a 2025 first from the Patriots. That actually could be a decently high first-round pick, maybe. Similar trade idea number 2, it's just the Chargers. Cowboys get Ladd McConkey and a first-round pick. Maybe the most intriguing package here of the 2, or at least the next 2, was George Pickens goes to the Cowboys and a second-round pick. Steelers, of course, get CeeDee Lamb. And then the Packers end up with CeeDee Lamb for one of Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson and Jaden Reed and a second-round pick. I'll come back to this in my overall thoughts, but are there any of those trade offers that you would accept in exchange for CeeDee Lamb? T for trade him, K for keep. You just don't like those deals. Let me know in the comments. I'll preface this by saying those trade offers aren't terrible. They're actually fairly decent, all things considered. I would not put them in the, quote, couldn't deny category. Like that Patriots pick might be pretty early, but these are not, oh my God, I have to say yes. It might be a different conversation if, you're going to rebuild the next 3 to 4 years, just take the assets and use them to get a new quarterback if you were convinced that was going to be the case. Cowboys not operated in that fashion. I would simply pay CeeDee Lamb. And here's why. None of the receivers mentioned, even though they're starting caliber receivers, are going to be CeeDee Lamb caliber players. Now, maybe George Pickens can be a true wide receiver one. I think Jalen Polk, Ladd McConkey, Dubs, and Watson and Reed are all, receiver twos. So your receiving depth overall gets better. Do you know what your number one need kind of becomes? Well, who's your number one receiver? You don't have one. So that first round pick you got back, you're now looking to spend it on a receiver. So you're kind of not setting yourself up for great success. And although the wide receiver market and the draft classes are always good, how many of these guys end up being as good as CeeDee Lamb? Maybe it's a Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors. Those guys go top 5. You're going to get a top 5 pick. And if you do, from your own pick, that's got to be a quarterback. So I think that the short-term, long-term value doesn't make sense to me.